Hey, this is Joyce
and Blake,
and welcome to Savagely Scaled. I'm so excited for this episode. Let's get into it. In
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, everyone. Today we are sitting with three wonderful ladies who we will be interviewing and who actually come to Kingman CrossFit. We do have Maggie, Rachel, and Cameron with us today. So before we get started, if you guys can just introduce yourselves in a name, how long you've been at Kingman CrossFit, and then we'll start.
I'm Maggie.
Yeah, is that good?
I'm 29. I have 2 kids, and I've been doing CrossFit for 4 years. I was wrong earlier. Between my second child. So after the first, and now currently after the second. I took a 1.5-year break for the second pregnancy.
My name is Rachel. I'm 32. I've been going to Kingman CrossFit for about 4 years. I have 2 kids, and yeah. Took one hiatus with one of them during CrossFit, but we're back.
Love it.
My name is Cameron. I'm 25. I have 1 baby, and I've been doing CrossFit for 3 years. I also took that year off.
Let's start with what brought you to CrossFit also. So Maggie, what brought you into CrossFit?
I was forced to do CrossFit.
All right.
My parents noticed I was just struggling physically. I just wasn't I wasn't healthy. And my dad coached down at the old gym downtown. And he's like, your mom will watch Aowen while you come work out. And I was like, all right. I guess
How old was Aowen?
Aowen was 9 months old.
Okay.
So I was still breastfeeding. That was hard. She didn't actually get to leave me during that hour until, I don't know, after I was doing it for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, I remember you running with that stroller.
Yep. I had the stroller, pushing her all the time, giving her crackers. I'd pause from workouts to go nurse her. That was hard. It was nice. It was a nice break. During the workouts, whoever was holding her, would be like, she's ready. I'm like, okay, I'll go break. But yeah, that's what got me started. Just my parents. I'm so thankful. At first, I was not happy. I was like, I don't want to go work out. And how dare you think I need to work out? They were right. They had the best interest, and I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. And then how old are your kids?
Almost 6 and almost, this does not add up, the ages and how long I said I did that. Me and my math. And Easton's almost 3.
Nice.
So.
Okay, Rachel, what brought you to CrossFit?
All right. So I had just finished nursing school, and my preceptor did CrossFit. And
Who's your preceptor?
Ashley Garcia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we'd always talk about working out because I was still big at the gym. She was saying that she thought I would really like CrossFit, like the intensity. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I did 1 free class and I was hooked. And yep. And then I have two kids. I have quite a gap. I have a 12-year-old and then I have a 3-year-old. I got to be a young mom and an old mom.
I love that. Yeah.
Well, your son's sweet as pie, though. So
thank you.
He's so cute
a
when
favorite.
I see him walking. Yeah.
He just started at the gym too, so it's nice to bring my family to my other family.
Yeah.
And he has great hair.
Oh yes,
He really does.
Some luscious locks, yes.
And he's just so sweet. Like, your kids are sweet too.
He's my little gentle giant.
But like the other day I saw both of you guys and you waved the same and just like
right. He's just me dipped in caramel.
Yeah. And then Cameron, what brought you to CrossFit?
I did a group class with my friend in Phoenix, and I knew I wanted a group setting gym, and CrossFit was it for me. I was just uncomfortable in my body at the moment in my life, and then I knew I wanted to move, and I knew I wanted a group setting, and I did it.
And then how old's your little one?
My baby turns 2 next month.
Nice. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your journey for pregnancy, leaning more. And I know, Rachel, you have the big gap, so we won't talk about your gentle giant. And then with Awen, you didn't do CrossFit during. More of like when you guys found out you were pregnant and what you thought your journey was going to be like for CrossFit.
So mine connects with Awen's
little
because
bit
I
closer.
had
There you go.
an inguinal hernia throughout her
That's right.
pregnancy, undiagnosed until afterward. So I was really bedridden for most of that time. So I had surgery to repair that when she was 3 months old. And so then I was able to start working out when she was 9 months old, healthy wise, like post-surgery and all that. I was super nervous to go into working out just because, I don't know, I felt like there's a little trauma and I didn't want it to open again. I didn't want to hurt again because it was painful. And so I was super cautious to do any sort of ab stuff after Awen. And then at the big, like right before Easton, I finally was comfortable. I was like, everything's great. I feel good in my body. I'm doing well at the gym, PRs and all that. And then with him, I was like, I'm going to work out the whole time. And I was so excited to. And I found out at like 4.5, 5 weeks, super early. I walked in to the 5 a.m. class, told Chris, and he's like, cool, this is great. And I felt great. And for like till 6.5 weeks, I worked out. I was getting nauseous, but I was pushing through. And then all of a sudden, it just hit again, that same hernia pain. And I was like, this is not what was supposed to happen. So I went to the surgeon again. He's like, well, we can't like get a CAT scan or anything until after the pregnancy. So just do what you can. And it got worse throughout the pregnancy as he grew and being so big. It was really hard. Turns out he just called it a sports hernia, which where that area was super irritated and didn't want to be strong, but it didn't actually puncture again, which was great. So I didn't need surgery, but it was nearly as painful.
It's hard when your plan completely
Oh, yeah.
derails. And you're like, yes, I'm going to be able to do this. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, you can't.
I
Yeah.
was so excited to have a
I
healthy
remember.
pregnancy. I'm like, I'm going to be like a fit pregnant lady. And now still overweight, still puffy. Like,
It was all baby, though. He was a big
he
baby.
was. With both pregnancies, I really only gained 30 pounds, including all the baby, all the extra.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I started heavier, so I ended heavier. But I'm like, 30 pounds isn't bad. I had start heavy and heavy. So it is. So, yeah, it was good.
So like Maggie, I found out pretty early because I had a sinus infection a week prior. I was on an antibiotic. Coming back to work out, I'm fine. And all of a sudden, felt like I was dying. And I was even telling Chris, I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And then that night, I get my positive test. I come back the next day. I was like, so I figured out what's wrong with me. I'm pregnant and I'm bad at it. And with my son, it was real complicated as well. They were very different time frames. But with my daughter, I was really hoping this was going to be a completely different pregnancy. I was going to be healthy, happy. I was going to be, doing push-ups on the block so your belly don't hit the floor. I was going to do it the whole time. And unfortunately, like you said, plans said otherwise. I started having kind of weird complications. I had suborbital trigeminal neuralgia.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, it's nerve pain in your face. You become more vascular. So I was hitting this branch of nerves. So it felt like I had an ice pick being stabbed into my brain.
Ouch.
Yeah. And so I kept getting cluster migraines and they didn't know what was wrong with me. And I ended up at neuro and all this crazy stuff. And that was happening pretty much almost to my second trimester. It kind of settled down. It would happen intermittently, but not as bad as when I first was pregnant.
Yeah.
And then at 26 weeks, I started having contractions because I remembered I tried to come back to CrossFit for one class. And Blake, sweet Blake, even scaled me to ridiculous. I even felt silly. I was just well, at least I'm moving. And then I started having contractions and she tried coming and I started having to have weekly injections to keep her in. And I got like a crazy light duty. They're like, you can't bend, you can't squat, you can't lift more than 10 pounds. It was literally sit there and do not move. And I felt like I lost like a part of my identity because fitness was always so big in my life and I couldn't do anything. Like most I got to do was sit on my big yoga ball and sit and wait. And I was like, so much for this being my fit pregnancy. And so as soon as she was born, I was itching to get back to the gym. I'm ready to go find me again. And once again, sweet Blake was even sending me videos to like help get things going before I could come back to the gym. And I hit the ground running. I was like, I'm getting my body back. I'm getting me back. And I just got to do it with a little sidekick. So it was nice.
And Cameron?
So I was in CrossFit for 6 months and then it was not expected, but I found out I was pregnant. I did do the Open 2022 pregnant.
Good job.
I did do that. It was hard.
I bet.
I remember Amanda was like, she was the one that was coaching me or like watching me. And but it was just my first pregnancy and I was scared. And I did walk during my pregnancy, but that was the extent of the exercise I did. I did CrossFit probably 2 months before I decided not to.
Yeah.
And then postpartum, 3 months postpartum, I tried to go back to CrossFit and I was told, your core is going to be trash. And I was breastfeeding and I was very sensitive. And I remember going home and like, I'm not going back. And then I know. And then
Gotta love those hormones too, though.
I know, girl. I breastfed for a year, and I remember after I was done breastfeeding, I was like, I feel normal. I feel good. So I decided to go back, and now I've been back since January, and it's nice. It's been nice. I like it. I feel stronger now than the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It is, yeah, coming back. Because I don't know what I would do. Like when I got pregnant, I was already doing CrossFit. That was like my 4th year into my 5th year. Like 6 months, that's scary. You have to think about like what's best for your body and what's best for baby. So like it's always the best decision to go with what you want and what you want your pregnancy to be. So let's go into postpartum. And go back into, I know Rachel touched on it, like your identity. And I know like both of you had your first, and we'll go a little bit different into Cameron's. But I always tell people it's kind of different with moms coming back because we're mom, we're not Maggie, we're not Rachel, we're not Cameron. So the best thing to do is go into a group setting where you are Maggie, Rachel, and Cameron. So how long did it take you to come back to the gym, Maggie? And was that like a big thing to be like, okay, I'm finally ready? Or what was your point when you were finally like after having the big boy?
For sure. Easton wrecked me way more than Aowen did.
Yes, how big was that baby?
He was 10 pounds, 4 ounces. And I had him at home. Planned home birth. He came pretty quick. It went from 2 centimeters to 10 in about 4 hours. And it was fast.
Honestly, that's polite. It can take a long time.
Yes, I'm grateful it was fast. It was just really aggressive. It was real aggressive, but it was good. It was what I wanted. I was so thankful to have my family and everyone and awesome midwives. Coming back was really, really hard because with Aowen, everything was perfect. Having her was perfect. I loved being a mom. She was the best daughter. Andrew and I were great. And then with Easton, I had pretty severe postpartum depression pretty early on. We were never in danger, but I didn't want to be mom. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to have to care for him. I was caring for him and I loved looking at him and I loved him with all my heart. It was just, I don't want to hold you. I don't want to have to take care of you. So it was really weird. And the depression stayed for, I don't know, about 9 months. And And so I came back with, I think I was 6 months when I
Yeah.
finally decided to come back with you. I was so nervous. I felt broken. I thought I was broken.
I know, because we would have talks about
Yeah.
like, no, you actually did amazing today, and you need to be
Yeah.
proud of yourself today, because I mean, coming into it, you know what your body can do. You know what your body can do. Like all of us in this room know. So when something like pushes you down and you're like, wait, I was able to do that and now I can't.
Mhm.
You know, and with like your core, your midsection, like a lot of us, it does wreck it. So to get that back, or to even get that feeling of I am in control of my body,
Yeah.
is very, very disheartening when you're like, but I used to be able to do that.
Oh, yeah. And it was like, it actually brings up a lot of emotion still in
That's,
me.
we have all cried on this, okay? So it's fine. You are in a safe space here.
It was just weird because I didn't realize what I couldn't do still. Because you would think like I can still do everything, and then you go into it and you're like, I can't do that at all. And I think, what did I do? Like 2 months with just you, I think, the personal trainings, and those were great. I highly recommend anyone having postpartum workout to go do that with a personal trainer, postpartum trainer. It's great. Because my first class back with Chris, no, there were a couple. I was going to most of his classes, and he'd ask me, he's like, what does Blake scale you to? What does she want you to do? And I finally remember after like 2 months of being back with him, I was like, all right, she's released me. I trust you to scale me. And he was like, oh, I'm like, yeah, you know what I can do now. And he did. He was always great with that.
We would talk too.
Yeah.
Like he would
loved
like
that.
text me and be like, how is everything? He let me know like whenever somebody's pregnant, and to reach out, and I'd always tell him, I was like, I still want them in a group setting.
Yeah.
Being pregnant and going solo is completely different, because being pregnant, you're again, I'm taking away everything. And if you're coming to me and I'm taking everything away, it's not the nicest. Postpartum's a little bit different because we're gaining things, but I'm always like, I'm so glad that you tell me those things, but I'm still going to tell them to go to class. I know you want me to make money, but I still am going to tell them, go to class as long as you can.
And yeah, that makes so much sense. I think we were doing like a back squat or front squat one day, and I was super light, and he noticed like I wasn't bracing, and like I thought I was, and he came over and he was like, okay, how would you react if I was like gonna punch you in the stomach? And I was like, I don't know, like I don't remember what my body should do. And he was like, okay, well, like bring your abs together. And I couldn't. It was so weird. And then we find out I had a large diastasis recti, which was preventing all my abs from coming together. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense now. But it was wild because my body didn't remember, like, you contract your abs to do something. And he was kind of like, all right, like, let's do it like this then. I was like, oh, okay, I still am a little broken.
Yeah, because I remember like we had gone back and forth even then, and then there was like also like a break because we're like, okay, you're starting to heal, and then Carol retested you when you got injured, and I was like, oh no, it's back again, and I was like, this darn thing is driving me nuts, and I bet it's driving Maggie.
It's still not. I don't know if it will ever fully like.
Yeah, because we would test like every time, like when we first started together, I was like, okay, it's slowly starting to close, so you should be able to go back. And then when you told me, no, we did lifting, can we do a couple other bracing sessions? And I was like, okay. And I was like, hey, we got it back down again. And then you went in and saw Carol about something, and she's like, nope, it's back. And I was like, mother effing.
It's so annoying.
You're like, oh my gosh.
I just told Andrew the other day that personally, I'm impressed with what I can do with my crappy core. Like, imagine what I could do.
Well, like,
was full.
I see, like, even when you're setting up for your lifts. So you are having, like, some sort of initiation. It's just our bodies sometimes are like, we don't really care what you're doing anymore.
No.
You know? And again, it's like, you had a big baby.
And he was all outside
yes.
of me. Like, there was nothing in my ribs. Like, I could breathe.
Yeah, it was a little barrel belly, too.
Oh, I was huge.
When
I was
did it
huge.
hurt?
Oh man.
Yeah, because like you wouldn't realize until like she literally turned around and I was like, whoa, jeez, aren't you due?
No,
Yep.
I got asked so many times when I was like 7.5 months pregnant. People were like, "Are you due like any
And
day?"
that
I'm like,
was-
"I have 2 more months." Thank you.
That's like the worst
Thank
thing
you.
too. Like, are you having triplets? No, it's just one in there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, are you having twins? I'm like, no, thank you.
She just told me I looked really cute, but now I feel huge. And I'm like, you do look really cute. You don't look different from behind. And I'm like, people used to tell me that too. And I'm like, that doesn't change anything that people see in the front. I'm glad I look from behind, but I don't look at myself back there.
Yeah, that's pretty much my story.
Yeah, that was a big journey. And I know you're still going on that journey.
It's probably not ever gonna end. I don't think it'll be whole. I don't think my body will ever be back to before.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm learning to move with it now.
Do you think like coming back to class and coming back to CrossFit or like a group setting like helped with that sort of depression?
Being around everyone was really good. Not being as competitive as I am, not being able to do what I could do and not be up to par with what everyone else in class was doing was hard for me mentally.
Coming from the girl who said I will never do a competition is very competitive.
Okay. You know, I didn't want to do those competitions because I know I can't win them. So that's why.
Joycey.
I don't want to do it if I can't win.
And I'm like, I'm just there to have a good time. Yeah.
No, I want to win. I grew up my whole life. Like, I was good at what I did. I won things. And I
compete at what you're good at?
probably.
No, challenge your
I don't know. I did lots of things. Just
I'm like, you're
know.
here. You're having a
Usually
good
you do what you
time.
like.
But it took a lot of talking into because she literally said, I'm never doing a CrossFit competition. I was like, Maggie, you'd be so good at it. She's like, but am I going to win? And I was like, that's not the point for your first competition. The point
always the
is
point.
just to go.
My goal is to not lose, not get last.
Yeah, that's always, I tell people, I'm like, we're always looking at not being last. And guess what? If we are, at least we can check off we did a competition and we know what to do next time.
so funny. My partner for last year's Barbell Mayhem was Rissa, who is also pretty competitive, but way more chill about it. And she's like, my goal is for us not to get last. I'm like, we're not going to get last. And she's like, you hope. Every time I said that, she's like, you hope. And I'm like, no, we're not getting last.
She's like, I straight up looked at everybody here and we are not getting last.
We're not. Like, that's just not an option. She's like, but it is. Like, it's not. She was so funny. Oh, yeah. She's great. But that was fun. We ended up getting third.
Because you guys were in the final heat.
We got second in every event except one. And it was not a good event for us, but
Yeah, that one was, and that was a hard event.
Yeah.
That's really impressive.
I was really proud of us.
Yeah, for a first one, that's not bad. Now weightlifting next, hopefully.
We'll see. I'm working on
So
it.
ready for that one.
All right, Rachel.
Did you know you were ready to come back in?
Oh, that baby was out and ready to party.
That's right.
Yeah, I probably went back to just like a normal Planet Fitness gym at 3 weeks. And I was doing stuff at home probably like 2 weeks in. And then I was at CrossFit at 6 weeks. But I love my baby, but I just had a very non-ideal pregnancy pretty much the whole time. Like complications started when I was 2 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
So I just needed to get back because that was what my body needed, my mind needed, everything needed. So, and it was also, I wish I would have given myself a little grace during postpartum because I just wanted me back. I wanted how I moved back and like you said, getting upset at things you can't do. Like I remember not being able to do ab mat sit-ups and like Dave had to give me like a weight and just, how to scale. And I remember like having my little support weight next to me for months and months and months. And I remember like when I finally didn't need to use an assist for the ab mat sit-ups for the workout. And I'm like, it's finally getting back. You know what I mean? I'm finally being able to do stuff again and being able to feel like me again and squat without falling down, because your whole balance is just so messed up after you have a baby. But it was nice to just get back and get back to me and just help me so much mentally.
I think that's what like people don't touch on so much, is that you're not you. You are you, but you have this thing, and I don't like to call it a thing, but this thing there that is constantly needing something. And you do have something there that helped make that thing, but sometimes like my second refused anybody.
Yeah.
You know, so it was always me. So like when I started, because I went back in 4 weeks and I went to our downtown location, and my first class was with Chris and we had ab mats, and I was like, oh my God, yay. And he's like, you're cleared, right? Yeah.
Totally.
And then I was like, I am peeing everything. This is so crappy. I don't think I'm going to make it. And then he brought me a weight. But because mine were kind of, we didn't have that big gap, I did CrossFit during mine. So I gave myself that grace of like, this is what it's supposed to be like. But we don't. And it's, you know, it's
so many
very
people
hard.
Just the whole, I want to bounce back. You know what I mean?
Well, because society tells you that you bounce back like that. Look, she did it. They did it. And it's like, that's not what is normal at all. And, you know, that's why, like, I reiterate, like, you have to go to those settings. You have to be graceful. You have to have your name. You have to start to build yourself back up with these additives that are so amazing in your life. They are. And I don't know if it's also the second baby, because you know your first baby. And you know what the expectations were. And there was only 1 and 2 of you, right? So you have that. So when you add that second one, because I even was a little bit of like detached of like, I just want to go back. It was so easy to kind of go back with the first one, even though it wasn't. But it's like the second one just needs me. And I've already given everything. Why can't I go back?
Well, one kid spreads you thin, and then you have another. You're like, oh, no more me for me.
So with coming back, that helped you kind of regularize.
I had real bad postpartum depression. I think honestly, I was just so unhappy throughout my pregnancy. As awful it is to say that, but
it's not, because also like, what's that movie that like Cameron Diaz, that's like What to Expect When You're Expecting, and it goes through all the different moms, and one is like has the most amazing, like she sneezed the babies out, and then this one looks a wreck, and she's like,
so
I have
true.
everything.
Some people are literally the best baby houses in the world, and other ones are not ideal. I even worked labor and delivery for like almost 2 years. And like you'd watch some women, they're like, I love being pregnant. I want to do it over and over again. It was just the best time. And I'm like, wow, that's nice. Yeah, it's just some people have an amazing experience, and that's good. You know what I mean? But
I had a great labor. I don't ever want to be pregnant
I'm good
again.
At the push part.
Yeah,
I can
I'm
push them out real quick,
but I hated getting stuff taken away from me. Like, oh no, you can never do this. It's okay, eat a cookie, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. By the 5th cookie, it's fine, right? But it's like I don't like things being taken away.
Yeah,
they're like, but you're growing something, and plants die too that I grow.
Yeah.
I don't really.
I was such a cranky pregnant person. I was just not in a good place. And I even when I met people, I'm like, you need to meet me when I'm not pregnant, because I'm really a great time, but this just is not a good time.
That's what my mom would tell me. She's like, she's not always like this. And I'm like, really? You say that. I'm really not going to be like this. She's like, she's on her period all the time. I'm like, really? Really?
But, yeah, my baby house is thoroughly closed. No more for me.
Well,
Bakery's out of business.
Yes. And I had real bad postpartum anxiety. I feel like a lot of people talk about depression, and not a lot of people talk about postpartum anxiety. Like PPA is honestly just as hard hitting. And like, I was much more depressed with my son. But then when I had my daughter, I was honestly expecting more postpartum depression, but I was just anxious. I was so anxious. And like, I remember even being nervous going back to CrossFit, and I'm just like, these are your friends. Why do you feel like you're going to have a panic attack? You know what I mean? And like, just doing something good for your body also helps kind of get over those fears, helps regulate hormones. And sometimes you just have to remind yourself, like, it's good for the soul, and the mind will catch up.
Yeah, that's true.
Get on the board.
Right. Yes. So what motivated you to when did you know was the point where you were ready to come back to CrossFit?
After I was done breastfeeding, I was extremely emotional. I was survival mode.
Yeah.
Gotta take care of this little baby. I don't know. And breastfeeding was around the clock. And then I went to pumping, and that was every 3 hours, and that just consumed my day. And I was walking, but that was about it. And then, like I said, after I was done breastfeeding, I just started getting that uncomfortable feeling again of okay, I got to start moving my body. And yeah, I was in the right mindset to do that because I don't know. After I was done breastfeeding, I felt like a relief. I was like,
Yeah.
It is. Your body's yours again.
Yeah. Yeah. It went from around the clock nonstop to, okay, I got some time on my hands. I could do something with it. And yeah, luckily I have my baby daddy.
Yeah.
So he stays with the baby, or he's at home while I go early in the morning, but
Yeah, she's a 5 a.m.
5 a.m. to 5.
Nice.
That was my class too back when I went.
The one I had coached that one time, all of 5 a.m. was like, no, Cameron's supposed to be here. I'm like, I know, she's usually here by now. And then she showed up at 8. I was like, we all missed you. And I only come here when they make me come to 5 a.m.
Yeah. So pretty much when I was done breastfeeding, I was like, yeah, I could get back in there.
How'd you feel coming back?
I felt really good coming back the second time. Not 3 months postpartum time. The 3 months postpartum time, I was still in the trenches, girl.
They tell me to come back, and I don't know why I'm back because I got so much stuff to do, and the baby still needs me. Yeah, you're just like, oh my god, this is okay. This is an hour, and then we have to drive, and then
boobs will be hurting in 20 minutes.
Yes. Oh gosh, leaking. Jesus. Yeah. But yeah, after I was done breastfeeding, I was ready.
I remember before I had my son, I was talking to my friend, and I was like, my boob is sweating a lot, and I was like, why is the sweat not under the boob? It is on the boob. And I was like, it's white and sticky. And she's like, do you want me to hang up? And I was like, no, I just really need to talk to somebody, and it just happened while you were on the phone. Yeah.
Sometimes it's an aggressive start too.
Yeah, my son, he was he came out, and I already was producing. My daughter, not so much. It was hard, but when I started pumping, but breastfeeding and pumping, like you guys said, it takes a lot, and it's just around the clock. And then they tell you to add in fitness. Well, then you have to increase your calories and to keep producing. So it's never a win-win situation of things. It's either I kind of stop doing fitness or I eat more, but then where do I fit it in? There's all kinds of things. What do you guys wish society would share more of with pregnancies, or especially with postpartum and fitness? Anybody can answer. Doesn't have to go in line.
So I feel like postpartum is very neglected. Postpartum is one of the reasons why I went to labor and delivery as a nurse. Everyone is excited about the baby, which of course, it's a new life, so it's exciting. But a lot of the time, mom gets forgotten about, and mom's needs get forgotten, and it's just, you're this person to keep baby alive, and which is, of course, you're a mama.
It's amazing.
But I feel like everyone always forgets to check in, and people forget how big postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and then it can escalate to postpartum psychosis, and scary, scary things happen when that happens. And if women got more of an opportunity to take a little time for themselves, and maybe things wouldn't escalate the way that they do a lot, and especially in the U.S. culture. Yeah. We do not check in on our mamas. And it's just, I am very grateful that all of us were able to get back to the gym, to have people who cared about us check in with us, like how Blake was always, making sure we're doing everything we could do, and everyone's just making sure we're emotionally okay. And I wish it was just don't forget mom.
Yeah, because it is. Because if you look at it and they're like, well, but that's what you signed up for. that's what you know. And it's like, no,
But then
I did not know that part. I knew
Yeah.
all of the happy parts that you guys all told me about, and finding like a group that will help. Or like, I remember having friends and they're like, no, we're just here for you we can hold the baby, but we're also going to do your dishes. We're going to help with your laundry. You need to sleep, which is hard as a first time mom. My second time it was a little bit easier for me to like relax with things. My first one was I had an anxiety through the roof of just, no, I'm supposed to do this. I remember bringing him home and I just cried and I was like, I'm killing my baby because it's just, and my mom's like, you need to go to sleep. No, he's crying. I can take care of him. And I'm like, what if he's hungry? Then I'll wake you up. And I was like, I'm going to kill him. And my husband was passed out. And I was like, see, I have no help. And she's literally like, I'm here to help you.
Sometimes, like, you're just, like, you're in that fog. Like, we talk about, like, that survival moment and, like, you forget. And sometimes you just have somebody offering to help. Like, I was so grateful when one of my best friends flew out when I had both my babies. And it was just take my child and go lay down.
Yeah.
And I feel like so much of our generation doesn't have the family village that like our parents had, our grandparents had. They had all this extra support, and most people don't have it anymore. So it's nice that CrossFit can bring you that village. Most of my people go to our gym, and that's my family.
I know when they say bring in your friends, and I'm like, they're all here.
They're here.
Like I literally don't have friends outside of the gym.
I'm sorry, I only have 4.
Yeah. Like, they all go here, and the new friends I made go here.
I know, right?
I agree with the postpartum. That was the hardest part, other than having the hard pregnancies, which thankfully I do have that village. All my family is here, and I'm so thankful. And my friends and my church family and my CrossFit family, all of those people were there, but I still felt alone. And it was so hard. And I didn't know that it was okay. I was like, now I'm like, it's okay if you don't feel good. It's okay if you don't want to hold your baby. I know that's not how you actually feel. It's just a symptom.
But it's because like people are like, oh, then you're not a mom.
Yeah.
Or you're weak. Or, things of more of like, this is on you and you need to figure it out.
It's so easy to be a bad mom. Yeah. Any little thing, just people constantly judge.
Yeah. I agree. And I had Andrew, who is amazing with the kids, and he was amazing with me and giving me all the grace. And I didn't change a diaper for Easton's first week. Like, he changed all the diapers and went through all of that and was like, go out with your friends. I think it was CJ's birthday. We went out one night and he kept him and gave him a bottle. And I came home and I just cried. And I wasn't okay because he was like a month old. So I was so fresh. He's like, go have fun. I'm like, I had fun, but I want to be home, but I don't want to be home. Like, it was weird.
It's the mom guilt.
Oh, for real. It's so real.
And I always thought like, oh, I'm able to give mom guilt to my kids now. But like you feel more mom guilt about yourself.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to like take that away. Because I still get that. I still get those days where I'm like, man, I was the worst mom today. Like I could have done so much better. And even like talking to like any of you guys or like my mom that I call or anybody, and they're like, no, it's fine. Like everybody goes through, and you're like, no, I felt like, like, how can I make this better? How can I be a better mom if I still feel like mom guilt all the time? But then I'm also like, I'm not the best because I
became a mom. Yeah. You've been Maggie this whole time, and all of a sudden now you have to be mom from one month to the next. Yeah.
It was that night that I got back from the birthday outing, and Easton needed to eat. Like I was going to nurse him, and I was just looking at him. He wasn't crying or anything, but he was you could tell he was ready. And I was looking at him, and I just looked at Andrew, and I was like, and I just started crying. I'm like, I don't want to pick him up. I don't want to. And he's like, okay, trying to evaluate where I am. And I was like, I'm okay. Like, I'm aware of how I feel. I'm not in danger.
Because the dads freak out. They're like, whoa, what does like, this mean?
What is this? I don't know how to handle that.
Like, oh, okay. Do we call somebody?
Yeah.
Because I remember talking to my husband. He's like, what do you do? And I was like, I don't know, but I need a minute or I need this. And having that partner understand is very, very big. But I always tell them, I was like, or I tell like the new moms that I'm like, sometimes dad's not going to understand it because you grew it, you felt them, you have this connection. Dads have a different connection. They have a completely different connection, which is an amazing connection. But you have this other one that's innate in you, but also that you grew up being told and also seeing in movies and what the mom's supposed to do and what the girl's supposed to do. And it's just hard when it actually comes to fruition.
Yeah. And that was exactly what it was, because he was trying to understand. He was trying to comfort me. But at the same time, sometimes Andrew comforting is like, well, why don't you just feel better? And I'm like, because I can't. And he would
You're
always
making it
mean
worse.
in the best way. He didn't understand how I was feeling. And I was like, well, it's just hard. It wasn't hard with Aowen. Like, I always wanted to hold her. Now I don't want to hold him. It feels like a chore. And he was like, it is a chore. What are you talking about? And I'm like, but it wasn't hard. And he's like, no, it is hard. And it's okay that you feel that. And I'm like,
Right, because that boy's always like, snacks,
Dude.
snacks. I walk in, it's either Harper here. No, now it's, where are your kids, Blake? And I'm like, they're at school or they're with their dad where they should be. Snack.
Yeah.
Darn, I forgot it.
Yeah. He's always eaten. He nursed for 12 months and Aowen nursed for 18. So when he was done, I was like, I'm great. Goodbye. I was no remorse. Like, some people are like, oh, I miss it. I'm like, not at all. I didn't miss it at all.
We were going on a trip to Florida when she was 14 months old. I'm like, I want to bring a carry-on. So I was wanting to make it to 14 months just for breastfeeding for an easier flight. And then we made it. And I'm like, okay, now I'm all done. Like, we're finished now.
Oh, bless all of you. Well, I dried up. I only had one for my son. And the other one was just like flat. The other one, my mom was like,
Right,
it's so, yeah, he was like, she'd be like, oh my gosh, you have like a porn star boob. And the other one's just not there. And I'm like, I know, it's crazy, right?
Just winking at
Where are
you.
the pics?
Yeah. And then I like dried up. So he only got 3 months and then Harper got 6 months because we were in the middle of moving and I had to give birth in a different state. My husband wasn't, it was just a whole different show. So by the time like everything settled, I was like, no, I've been working out. Like, I'm okay with this thing. She takes the bottle too for a little bit because I would put formula in the bottle. And I was like, you know what? I'm good. The other one survived. I'm not really into this thing because she would make me bleed. Weston was a very nice nibbler. She hated me.
Aggressive.
She was very aggressive and she would do like what cats do and dogs do. And I would just be like, yep. And and my hand would be like this and my husband would be like, you okay over there? I was like, I'm not gonna hit her. I'm not gonna fight her.
My daughter
I
was
just
fine until she was looking. And then she
oh my God. And I was like, you might not like what these look like. They're gonna look different, but they gotta look jacked up. I'm not gonna want to look at them.
My son was almost born like 7 weeks early. So both my pregnancies were a hoot, just in different ways. And so he had like no suck. He like couldn't eat well. We had to like delay like certain types of feedings because of how he ate and everything. Yeah. So he was a terrible boobie baby. And like I really wanted to breastfeed. And since he was an epic failure, just at that with my daughter, I was like, all right, we're going to have a boobie baby. And so I was so proud how far we made. Because,
Okay, so the question is, do you feel like with society and postpartum, like should there be changes or how do you feel about that with anything with pregnancy? Like, did you feel like that you had to be a certain mom? Because you're the young one. You're the more.
I was gonna say you're more of like the TikTok generation.
Yeah, I was about to, I literally was just thinking anything I was wondering, TikTok's like the new Google. Yeah. So any questions I had.
When I worked labor and delivery, literally dads would come in and I'm like, let me show you how to use the chair. And he's like, oh, no, I watched a TikTok. And they would open it. I was like, all right, good job. Make a TikTok. Like, you're right.
Yeah, so it's a bunch of like women who go through the same thing and you can relate. And so I felt like I had comfort in that. Like any question I had, I didn't have my mom, so I had TikTok.
Yeah. Did you feel like, were there any videos or social media that weren't helpful or like mostly because it's the For You page that starts to get an algorithm of like, these are good things that you want to watch. Was there anything that you were like, ooh?
So I take everything with like a grain of salt. Some things I don't relate to, some things I do. Swipe. Just keep swiping. I'm like, okay. Like, I don't know. It's just
I don't know. Like, I don't know like why all of you had a difference. How's your significant other with the baby?
Oh, he was amazing.
Yeah.
He would like I was just emotional. I don't know how to label that. I was just extremely emotional.
Did you like cry? Like, was it more like crying at everything or like
everything?
Yeah.
For a long time.
Like somebody would be like, hi.
It takes about 2 years after breastfeeding for your hormones to fully regulate. So it is a journey for years to get back to baseline.
That's probably what's been wrong with me.
Yeah.
We're hitting 2 years next month. Wow.
That's why I was asking about your breastfeeding and all that. Yep. Hormones.
There you go. No wonder we've been having discussions in the gym. I was like, I haven't breastfed in a long time, but I'm on an emotional roller coaster. Some people could just be like, hi, and I'm like, please don't say that to me right now. Or like when I give you, I'm like, I just want to punch somebody in the face. So like with breastfeeding with you, because you all three did breastfeeding, like how did you feel when it started to come to a stop? Or did you feel like less connected?
So I like physically breastfed for 3 months and then I went to like strictly pumping. So I strictly pumped for the rest
of the remainder time.
That's why I was like every 3 hours. That's what I was saying. It was every.
But you had your generation had those ones that could just suck and you could walk around.
I would wear them at work and you just confuse everybody, but then you'd be like.
I did use those, but then whenever my supply started dropping, I had to go to the Spectrum, like the wall pump, because the stronger. So like 9 months. So I was on the wall pump towards the end because it was like that's what my body needed, and so it was like I said, every 3 hours I would wake up like in the middle of the night just to keep that supply because I was stuck on just make it a year, just make it a year. Just make it a year. It's just
because you're supposed to make it a year.
Yeah, tons of people. And I was like, as long as we do a month, because I was never, my mom didn't breastfeed me. She has like size H. So by the time she had milk in, she thought she was going to suffocate me. So I was, She was like,
it's a higher risk factor.
She was like, I didn't see your face. I was very scared. So we switched to formula right away. So I was like, hey, at least if I get a month in, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then like hitting those things, I also felt better. Like I had the wall one, but I also had the manual one and I got so much milk out of the manual one. Yeah. You just self-squeeze. You do self-harm. That's the self-harm instrument.
I would have the ones, so you know how babies trigger milk supply.
Yes.
Crying. So I worked in labor and delivery. You have to do 24-hour cares poking babies and I'd be pumping and I'm like, yeah. I'm going to get so much extra milk right now. Babies were fine.
Yeah.
They're fine.
But it is like Rachel said, like society puts a number in your mind of like, okay, and they don't have to say you're a good mom if you hit a year. It's just instinct. Like formula babies are way better than, or not formula babies, breastfed babies are way better than formula babies. Like it's very instinct in us. Like,
or moms put their worth in ounces.
Yes.
You know, you feel like you didn't get enough. My body's failing me. I can't even do this right.
Mm-hmm.
And
I felt that way. I was like, okay, in the hospital, I was doing really, really good. I came home and it was just one. And I was like, what am I failing at and I was like doing the calories. I was doing the healthier versions of calories and just like intake and
all the supplements.
Everything.
Are just enough.
Yep.
And some people are cows.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm failing at something. And then when I had Harper, I was like, I'm not failing at anything. And if we just pump, we just pump. And if it dries, it dries. But yeah, they have so many other things. Like you said, like lactate cookies.
I make my own little like protein balls. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the tea is amazing.
Yes. So I feel like there's there's little bits coming out. I just don't feel like there's a lot of support. Like I'm glad that you're making cookies and you're having teas and there's videos and you could kind of feel that, but there's no close knit support without feeling like you failed somewhere. And that's why I feel like we should have like better things. And I'm glad that all of us go to the gym, and the gym is an amazing aspect, but I feel like we still need more, you know?
Everyone that I went to class with, like Awen was, so I started about the same time with both of them, but Easton was needier than Awen was. She was very independent, would go do her thing, would be happy.
Yeah, I remember like having that stroller and just rocking him
Easton
and doing
was not
laps.
happy for so long, and that made it really hard to be there. But also, I was able to breastfeed him whenever he needed, and having all the coaches, like Chris never really like was hands-on with Easton, but he would keep an eye on him. And like,
I'd always be like, if you guys have kids and you want kids, just bring them to my class.
Or my dad.
Oh yes, your dad was
holding the
really good
babies.
too.
Like
Yes.
he's like, give me the babies.
Yeah, because I remember when Aowen came in, and I would
Uh-huh.
come in a couple times, and then when Jessica Gifford would bring one of her kids in, and your dad was very like open, like, yeah, and I'm always like, if they're in a stroller and if I need to push them, it's so much easier to coach if I can push them.
Yeah.
And if they need to be held, I can hold them after I have directed class, which I haven't had like moms be like, oh, that's horrible.
Oh no.
But it is. I'm like, there are coaches who are okay with it, but there's more of those hands-on coaches who are like, yes. And that's what when I went to CrossFit, like I introduced my son to my box at 6 weeks, and they're like, we'll hold him. We have to teach the class really quick, but once class goes, we can hold him. We can feed him. You just leave us. The only rule was they're like, we're not changing him, so we will come get you. And I was like, I understand. That's a line.
Me and Maggie, we kind of had our babies around similar times. And I remember watching you come in with your kids and with the stroller. And I'm like, holy shit, she's fearless. I was so amazed. And because
my dad. My dad was there. He was like,
I guess that's an amazing security blanket. Yeah, I as terrible as it was, I was always scared to bring my baby. I'm like, what if she starts crying, and what if she starts affecting other people? And I also had really bad postpartum anxiety, and I couldn't fathom bringing in my baby. And I would watch you, and I'm like, wow. I wish I could be a mom like Maggie and just be
I tell moms all the time, I'm like, just bring them and try it out. But it is hard because then you're like, oh, she's crying, she's not stopping.
Yeah.
You have two choices going on in your head. Man, I wish she wouldn't stop crying and I have to leave now. Or do I just stay and let her will it out and it affects other people? And it's very hard decisions to make. And I'm like, it is okay to not. It's okay to be in that window. You did have your dad. Like, I was also just that person who, wherever I moved, my family wasn't. So the box became my family. So it was always like, okay, they're here. The only thing was when I had Harper cried the entire time.
Gwen will cry.
Mhm.
I still won't bring her.
Yeah.
She's
And
a scaredy cat.
yeah. So like I had my husband watch her. She cried the entire time with my husband. My daughter did not like my husband until she was 6 months. It was rough. I would come home and he'd be like, you can't go back to the gym. She cried the entire time. And I'm like, you can handle it. He's like, technically it's 2 hours because you have to leave early to set up and come back. And I'm like, you got to just deal with it, man.
Oh yeah, when I'd come walking in, my husband would be like, oh, thank God you're here. And I was like, there's travel time. All right.
But like with Weston, it was different. Like he was like, he just loved it there. And I go, they were two different babies, two different growing up into boxes. Like Weston again was like 6 weeks. We were there. Harper, I went back in 4 weeks and it was just me and her. Like my birth was just her. My husband came for 2 days, had to leave for a month. So she only knew me.
Yeah.
And she only got hooked onto me. And we had to like retrain her. Like to this day, like I used to do programming with Chris and Obi and me and Harper would be there.
Everybody's babies.
And Harper loved Obi. And she still to this day refuses to look at Chris. She says hi to Maggie's dad. Maybe every once in a while she will look away. Like she just does not have a trusting bone in her body. You offer my son ice cream, Legos, a candy, and he'll be like, hey, I'm Weston Walker. I live on this street.
That sounds like mine.
And I'm like, that is a stranger.
It's dog spirit, cat spirit. That's what that is.
Easton cried for a long time. It wasn't an environment he liked to be in. But after he was able to eat some solids, it was easy just to shove crackers in his face. He'd go through a sleeve of crackers every time I went to the gym.
Oh, wow.
Every time. And it was hard. with him crying for the first, I don't know, like 3 months of me doing it because I felt inconvenient, like as inconveniencing other people.
And I'd be like, he's fine.
I know, but then it's hard for me to focus because I'm like, my baby's crying, but I need to do this.
Hormones, that's like triggering that.
Oh, it's terrible.
How do you feel about bringing your baby or not?
I did it once. And it was a few months ago. And she did not like whenever my back was turned to her. She went, Mom! And I was like, oh, God. And Mary was like, what's wrong with her? And I was like, I had to give her my phone so she could hang out.
Yeah.
But that was the only time I had to really bring her. That's why I go so early.
Yeah.
So she's sleeping, and I usually come home, shower, and then she's up. So,
Do you feel like also that because you would bring your kid that you were less of Maggie, you were mom because you had to worry?
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, a lot of it was that. But I understand with the lifestyle we live that's how I'm going to get to work out. They're just around me, and
Mhm.
I've become a lot more comfortable with it. I'm able to shut them out more now. Not fully, because I'm trying to be aware of if anything's dangerous, if they're doing
Yeah.
something dangerous, if they're walking where they're not supposed to. Because still, being almost 3, Easton still gets in the way.
He's
and
so
gets into
curious.
things.
He does so much better though. Like when I'm weightlifting, he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, going through the bag," and I'm
Oh,
like,
he
"Okay,
almost got
yeah."
in. Oh no, he did get in trouble. Saturday, Friday. It was Friday. Jason was lifting, and Easton just books it like all the way across the gym. I see him coming, and I'm on the opposite side of Jason, and I'm like, "Stop, stop!" And I'm screaming at him to stop because he was getting real close, and he went past my dad and Chris was like, "Hey!" and was like running after him, and I grabbed him, and Chris picked him up and put him over on a chair, and I'm like, "All right, Chris has got it. That's fine." And Easton, he was like, "Chris touched me?" And I was like, "Good. Be upset. You should not do that." And Jason's like, "I didn't even see him." I'm like, "Well, that's good, but still."
That's the scary part.
That's like, it's a lot of weight to be moving around running in front of that.
These big boys are throwing around like hundreds of kilos. Like it's wild.
Yeah,
so.
I'm like, well, I remember lifting and Harper was coming by and I didn't even notice her, and Chris actually picked her up. She freaked her the F out that she was like, I'm just going to sit right here. But he's like, you must crush your dad. I was like, she might learn then because I'm tired of telling her. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I've only taken Gwen once, and it was just me. And like now I'm in the weightlifting area.
Yeah.
So it was just me and her. So very easy to watch her. But it's cute too, because now she'll see videos. She's like, that's mommy's gym. She's like, I go back.
That's so cute.
Right.
So with yours, when you brought her, was it more of like you were more focused on her than working out, or was it kind of like?
Yeah. And it was like a team thing. And so the person I was teams with, I felt bad for because she was just like, like,
Yeah.
I felt like she could respect that I was like tending to my child, but it was also like, oh, like I'm holding her up. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was always very grateful that I was able to have a babysitter so I could have some time for me.
Yeah, it's nice
It
to
is.
go like be you and
Yeah.
do something for yourself.
I'm not constantly worried. What's going on behind you? Who needs me? Are they crying? Are they doing?
No.
No, I'm just here worrying about myself.
Yeah. Or like how, because Rachel and Maggie do weightlifting and do programming, so that takes more time than CrossFit, and that's hard having your kids with or without, because I know sometimes with Maggie you're like, and I was like, girl, I know those kids.
I know those.
Well, because I bring mine too. I bring mine too to work. Okay, so it's sometimes nice when they play together,
Oh, no,
but
it is.
sometimes when you're like, oh my gosh, because sometimes the girls are like, they're messing, or I think it was last week when I was like, Awen and Weston, you guys are the older ones. You are the older brother and sister. You need to be nice to your younger siblings. And it's, it's nice where I'm like, okay, well, at least Maggie can lift. And I could just be in here and be like, hey, I'm going to be the mean one today. Okay? Don't get to go over there today.
I super appreciate you having them in there with you all the time because it's a little bit easier for them to be in that big room with you, like across the room,
Yeah.
instead of having them in the lifting part. When I initially started with Chris, I gave him these days, and I was like, I have a built-in babysitter every Thursday. Like, Thursday's the day I can work out by myself. And like the second month in, he's like, hey, I need you to rest on Thursday. And I'm like, that's not gonna work. And he's like, okay, hear me out. And he explained, I'm like, that makes sense. I understand why.
I wish my rest day was Thursday so much.
But it was my day. That was my day. You took my day.
I know. I would look at him and be like, I remember you telling me to work out less with my kids around, and you're making me work out more. So who's the contradicting person here? Who's not helping me right now with my children?
I mean, it makes sense.
It does. It's nice to have Thursday as a rest day.
Yeah, we're gonna
For
talk.
me,
after the meet we're gonna
Yeah, I
talk.
was like, for me, it's nice, but
Yeah.
yeah, when you don't have that. I mean, my husband's home every other week, so I have kids with me every other week. So those weeks where I don't have them, I'm like, okay, I am working more, but I want to go in and work out by myself, and it is very nice. It's nice to have family around. It's nice to have a babysitter around. It's nice to have somebody to watch your kids, so you're back to you. In some sort, or like even working, because Maggie is a stay-at-home mom and she homeschools. Rachel works. Cameron works. Yes, I was like, I believe I remember that.
3 days a week.
She's like, I got 3 days. I got 3 jobs over here. Okay. And I don't have glasses, so I thought she was like, yeah, peace. I was like, I got it right. Number 1, I knew it. So we all have like different aspects of being with our kids. You have 2, Rachel has 2, Cameron has 1. So like all of these moms have different things and different ways of being in life, and how each one was different, and trying to get back to you is hard. So I commend you guys in all that you do. And thanks.
You do a lot.
I think we all do a lot in here. I know Joycey hasn't been able to get a word in edgewise.
I love it. I love like hearing about it. I mean, I'm not a mom yet.
No, we just scared
She's a
her.
great aunt, though.
But I think it's still very insightful for women who are looking to get into being pregnant and don't really have the information. Like, I'm learning a lot.
Well, and like what Maggie was saying, you're like an aunt to her kids.
Oh.
The friends that choose to show love to someone's baby and you love them like they are your own family is so big and so huge. And just doing that is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, she's an aunt to my kids, because like Wes, even though so I went to a concert on Friday and I forgot to tell her when bedtime was. So she like texted me like at 9 something. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, he's still up. And I was like, girl, turn the TV off. He will be up the entire time. And then she's like, oh, he took a nap. But then when he came home, she's like, yeah, he's up again. And I was like, it's just he has like a hyperfixation of like things. And I didn't bring his noise machine. Yes, my 7-year-old still has a noise machine.
I have a noise machine.
Yeah. So, and it relaxes both of them, and I forgot to bring it, and there's all kinds of stuff, and I was like, I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell my mom. It's grandma time. It's auntie time. Like, I used to tell my husband this when I'd go on, like, vacations, or I always had, like, a wedding thing that I was doing, and both of the bachelorette parties, I was like, you're just in survival mode. Mm-hmm. I don't care what I come back to. You got to survive. So I'm not going to be upset. If the house is in disarray and there's crunch puffs everywhere, and as long as you both survived, I'm okay with that. Yeah. So again, as long as you both survive, but it's nice to have friends that have that, because like I don't have family out here. So when like my kids are like, can we go to like the fair's coming up, and they're like, we want to take Awen to the fair, and I was like, I'm pretty sure Maggie's gonna take them, and they're like, can we go with them? And I was like, yeah, I'll see. And or when Eason like comes up and he's like, are your kids here? Where's Harper? Or like when he leaves now, he comes and tells me, and he's like, I gotta go. And I was like,
say goodbye to Auntie before you leave.
and I think like the last time he did it, I literally looked at Maggie and was like, did you make him come over? And she's like, no. And I was like, oh, he has chosen to come over here. There's been a couple times he'll give me like a nice little hug where he lays and relax. That's like the best hug, is when like somebody who's not your kid relaxes on you, and you're like, I have their trust. Yeah, I was like, I have all of their trust, and it's so amazing.
My daughter is she'll come up to you when she wants to. Like, she's not a little social, like she's complete opposite from my son. My son, you smile at him,
So
you're his best friend. My daughter, we'll talk about it. And one of my best friends, Sierra. She's one of those people for my daughter. And just watching her run up and go climb on her lap and nuzzle into somebody who just chooses to love my baby. I'm like, that is huge, and forever grateful for people who are like that. Because not everyone has family who loves on their babies.
No. And not everybody wants like somebody's kid on them or have that, like if they're at the
Like, I am touched out.
Maggie's like, I like your kids. And I was like, Maggie, it's okay. You don't have to like my kids. You don't have to do anything. I was like, I'm not that kind of person that you're like, they're okay. I'm like, yeah, they're not your kids.
But you don't know how rare it is that I do like your kids. I do love your kids. Like, I thought I was a kid person when I was younger, and then the older I got, I was like, I'm not. I'm a meet my kids person.
Yeah.
I love my kids.
Oh, yeah.
It's
and I'm
hard.
like, not every person has to be that way. As long as you love your kids, that's all I care about, because that's your kids. I just grew up with like having that you get to choose your family. And I also grew up in daycares and things like that where my mom worked. So it was always like you're around kids and you just learn to be like, oh, every kid, like you love every kid.
We love everybody.
We do.
Please keep on coming to the gym.
Yeah, Cameron's like, don't turn that into the podcast.
Person, just not their parent.
Because I'm like, when we have events, I like that because they're all here. We're all having fun events. But yeah, there's times when I'm tapped out of my kids.
That's why I'm happy I get my gym time. Because, all right, tap it out, Dad. You got it. Mama's gonna go work out.
All the time. And I'm like, all right, guys.
I was laying down stretching the other day before I was getting lifting, and Easton came over and was just...
His body slammed you.
Oh, yeah. And he's just asking me questions and not listening to my answers. And I was like, just go on. And Chris was like, oh, you're not annoyed at your kids at all. And I'm like, I really am. Like, don't, not now. Now is not the time.
Like Maggie smash.
Oh. I just need a minute to just do my thing. And then they go. And then I'm okay. I'm learning to get that time while they're around by just trying to tune them out as much as possible.
I think you do so well.
Oh, thanks.
do.
It's hard. It's really hard.
I'm always impressed. I'm like, damn.
I do think it's cool that your kids get to see you in that like super mom mode.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
They
Like
can see a part of you.
yeah.
Chris said if I can't lift with him, lifting with my dad would be second choice.
Heck yeah.
And I'm like, well, that is my second choice because...
Yep.
Well, when I can't look at the kids and I have to ignore them when I'm doing a lift, he can handle that. And I trust that it doesn't inconvenience him. He's not upset about it in any way. Yeah. So that I am very, very blessed with my family situation, my gym situation. Everyone is so great to my kids. And I try really hard not to take advantage of that. Like I want people to still want us around.
Something you wish other pregnant moms, who are listening to this episode, some advice, some anything you would like to share?
Just try to do it. And if you can't do it yet, that's okay. But don't just ever fully quit. Like take a break. Take your break as long as you need a year, 6 months. Just try again.
I love that.
Give yourself some grace. Everything happens with time. We're not going to bounce back and be the exact person we were right before 10 months ago. So enjoy the journey. You are a new person now, and learn to love that new person and figure them out.
Amen.
Love that.
Yeah. Don't get discouraged. Everybody's there to do the same thing. Move and have fun.
Cameron, are you going to have any more?
I do. And I do want to, I know you guys said plans don't go away, but I have a plan.
I'm pregnant now.
No, I'm like, is there an announcement?
No.
I was like, both of my pregnancies were planned.
No, I'm talking about like planning in my future. I'm like, okay, I want to, my next pregnancy, I would like to keep that movement going because this one I didn't. And I'm like, I don't regret that I didn't because it was my first baby. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But the next one I would like to, now I've been through it. I would like to keep
doing
it
the
going.
blocks, doing push-ups.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
you did like 6 months joining CrossFit within 6 months. Like that's a hard road. Like I said, I had been doing it for almost 5 years. So I knew that I was like, I always remembered going in my brain, like they would always say to moms, if you've ran, you should keep running. You should never just sit
Mhm.
because that's actually going to lead you to more predisposed positions, right? So I was like, okay, then I can do this. My whole thing was just the weight never bothered me. It was like, okay, now I can't jump rope anymore. I loved handstand push-ups and overhead squats. There was a point where I couldn't do any of those. So it was more like I was getting stuff taken away. So it's like that point is where you kind of have to like switch to like, okay, yeah, I am carrying something. Now with Harper, because she was my second, I was like, oh yeah, I don't, as long as I'm here and I'm lifting some sort of weight and I'm doing things, like I listen to my body a little bit differently with her. But it is like you had a different crossroads than most of choosing what you wanted to do with your first pregnancy. So it wasn't a bad decision at all.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. But I think that's it. We want to say thank you guys so much for being here, and sorry for the technical difficulties and everything. And
Me and Maggie were romantic. It was
yeah.
right? We work at tight quarters all the time.
Yeah. But thank you guys so much for taking time out of your Sunday and coming here and getting this done. And I hope everything sounds very well.
It's actually really cool because sometimes people ask about my experiences and stuff. And when I was on my way over, I was like, I have something to share.
Yeah.
Like, this is something that could be helpful to someone. And that's really cool.
I know. And you know what? Like, Maggie was one of our first ones that we made do a video with us. And I was like, you're going to be on the podcast one day. And she's like, no, I can't. No. I don't like how my voice sounds. I don't like anything. And I was like, no, you will. It's okay.
It was nice to be able to share something on a platform. A lot of the time when people ask me about pregnancy, I don't want to share.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm bad at it. You don't want to know. I'm like, you just have a happy pregnancy.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to kind of share stuff without having to worry about hurting someone's feelings or like harshing their mellow a little bit. You know what I mean?
Because I feel like there's a lot of moms, like even when I see, and I know that we're mostly like CrossFit based, but even on those messaging boards, or they're not called messaging boards anymore, the groups on Facebook, and they're like, oh, like, is this normal that I couldn't do CrossFit, or that I chose to take a step back and I'm back to it? Like, is it normal to feel this way? And there's not a lot. There are people who are like, oh yeah, this is, or the ones who are like, oh no, I did it through all my pregnancy and it was amazing.
Talked about a lot more.
Yes. And so I feel like it was nice to hear like what your guys' background was and why you chose, or your body chose for you to kind of mellow it down, and what your postpartum looked like. Because yeah, a lot of people don't talk about the anxiety or the depression as much. You hear it more when it was that heightened part, and more on like news or things when it's completely just hasn't been sought out. Or you hear the whole, oh yeah, Betty with her depression, she just couldn't handle it, or it just looked very bad upon. And I think that's why women are more scared to talk about it or be okay about it. Because I didn't even know about the mommy blues. Like, my cousin had her daughter 2 weeks before me, and I literally called her and I was like, why am I feeling this way? And she's like, oh, you have the mom blues, like, but it can lead to depression. Like, we want to look out for these signs, but you're a great mom. And I was like, I don't feel like it.
When you admit it, you feel like you're not a good mom.
Yeah. So a lot of people need to hear this, that you are, and having those, questions, or being like, I don't feel right, but I know I'm going to be okay, but I don't feel right. So what is the next step I need to do? Is this a warning sign?
The hardest thing was, I was like, okay, I know I'm not okay, but I am okay.
Mm-hmm.
But how am I going to be fully okay? Like, and I don't know. I think I just like waited it out. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. Doctors didn't know. No one helped me.
No,
I just waited.
There's not a lot. And you like Google or TikTok, and
That makes you feel worse.
so they would always like, don't go on Google.
Well, and sometimes you don't want to throw a pill at it either.
No. Yeah, because
100%.
it's like, if I have other avenues to go through it, or to know like, hey, there is kind of a timeline. After that timeline, let's look into this, or you can do these other avenues before we even think about that.
And it's definitely okay to introduce medication if that's the thing that you need. But I'm always big, try fitness first. Try natural endorphins. And sometimes just doing that can make you a much happier human and regulate yourself.
Or that whole thing of like taking a break from the environment that is causing that. Even if it's an hour and a half or 2 hours, taking that break, taking yourself outside of that environment to be like, I am okay. I just needed to gather myself and know that I can make it through. And when I step back in, I know what to do now. I have my plan. But I also feel like as women as moms, we love to add so much to our plate. And those are just another step to or another grouping on our plate to, we can do that. We can do everything, right? But there also comes a time when that plate breaks or you can't pile anything, and it's who do we go to? And that's why I feel like our CrossFit family, where there's so many things that I've talked to you and Heather about, I've talked to Maggie about. I don't see Cameron as much to talk about other than when she's matching with her sister at 5 a.m. I'm like, do you plan that? Was that a 3 or a 2?
Who's your sister?
That was a peace sign.
That was a 2. Like, I can't. She just likes to flip me off so much. She's like, you're not videoing this so I can keep doing this. Savannah,
yes.
Mm-hmm. And every time like I coach them, I'm like, y'all plan that matching thing? Because it's always like opposite too.
And we never do. We never do.
And they're just like the cutest thing because like they push each other too. I'm like, I love it.
Good job getting your family in there.
Yeah.
She loves it. We are. Sorry, that was a long one. Just for fun's category. Though.
Yay! Well, we just want to thank you guys again for coming out here and sharing your stories. I know that is not always what people want to share, is the rough side or even the good side or whatnot. It's more about what makes everybody happy. So thank you for sharing your postpartum and also sharing about your CrossFit journey with it as well. So thank you, Maggie and Rachel and Cameron, for coming here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It was fun.
It was funny. I looked at you, but I was like, her voice sounds so different. And it was Cameron talking. All right. And that's it. Again, we hope that you enjoyed this episode. A big thank you to you guys for always listening, always sharing. Thank you guys so much. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be doing this. So yes, thank you. Our music is from SoundCloud and Upbeats. Also, if you feel like this podcast is your swig of pre-workout, please subscribe on YouTube. Click. Yes, follow and leave a review. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Savagely Scaled. And you can also leave us an email if you have anything that you want us to talk about, rant about, review, anything like that at savagelyscaled1, the number 1, at gmail.com. Yeah. And remember, don't be a Karen. That's right. Be a Sharon. Yeah, there you go.